Welcome to the Alex Salmond Show from Copenhagen. In the Danish Parliament, they make the big decisions affecting the politics of the Kingdom of Denmark. But surveys tell us that this is the most contented society on earth. In this programme, we try and get to grips with the secret of the Danish elixir of happiness.
It's a fascinating time in Danish politics. Pia Allerslev is Copenhagen's former Mayor of Culture and Leisure and former Mayor of Children and Youth. She says culture and leisure is a vital part of the city's long-term planning, and she's convinced it's a big reason why the city ranks as one of the happiest places in the world.
Pia Allerslev, welcome to the Alex Salmond Show.
Thank you so much.
Now, you spent 6 years as Mayor of Culture and Leisure here in Copenhagen. How important is the cultural aspect to the vibrancy of a great city like this?
Well, I think the cultural life in Copenhagen is one of the reasons why we have been ranked as one of the best cities in the world. Of course, you need daycare centers, you need great infrastructure and all that, but it's the cultural life, it's the leisure life, it's all the fun things that are important to a city the size of Copenhagen, at least.
And unlike many cities around the world, Copenhagen has kept its skyline and much of the traditional architecture is intact. Has that been a difficult thing to do?
Well, it was actually one of my first political decisions when I became Mayor of Culture and Leisure back in 2008. And the former Lord Mayor, she didn't want to keep the skyline. She wanted to make it possible, if the right project came, that we could just put up a big building right in the center of the city. But a majority of parties decided that no way. We want to keep the skyline, we want to keep what is very important and very special to Copenhagen, but we also wanted to make sure that of course we can build high buildings and spectacular new buildings in the surroundings of the city. But the old city has to remain the old city structure.
Now, Pia, for a visitor to the city like myself, that's wonderful. It's one of the first things you noticed so distinctively about Copenhagen. But of course, with the number of people coming and wanting to come to Copenhagen to stay as a result of the city's success, there must be quite a tension between not being able to build high-rise and accommodating the growing number of people.
Well, but I actually think that most people, they prefer a Copenhagen like this because we're building new, fantastic areas in Copenhagen with new, very modern buildings. I think a lot of people, they would actually not like to live in the old city because you have all the bars, you have all the restaurants, you have all the people in the old city. So the people coming to Copenhagen to live here, they actually want to stay just a kilometer or two away from the center, but still be able to go there and enjoy the life there. So we're building, I don't know, really many apartments right now for new Copenhageners.
Now, Pia, we're conducting this interview over the Christmas period, and I mean, it's magical. The Copenhagen looks absolutely magical at night. But if I was here, perhaps in a dreich, as we'd say in Scotland, a dull spring day, would it be as attractive then? Would there be as many things to do and visit in terms of the cultural footprint of the city?
We are actually trying to, when I was mayor, we invented something called dull Tuesdays, or boring Tuesdays, because Tuesdays was just the days where, well, Monday you don't want to go out anyway, but Tuesdays you actually wanted to do something, but none of the music venues or the bars or the restaurants had anything special to offer. So we actually created kind of a fund from the city, so you could get money to give a concert or do something spectacular for the Copenhageners, but only on Tuesdays. We had that for a few years, and that actually worked. So I think you would find Copenhagen interesting almost all the time. And of course, you don't go to the high-end places every time. You also have to search for some of the small, more invisible, interesting places, and we have a lot of those. Luckily, we still have a lot of those in Copenhagen, so it's not all just mainstream and nice and things that you could see in London or New York, but we also have the special Danish Copenhagen way of having fun.
Well, tell me a bit about the special Danish Copenhagen way of having fun. This sounds like the sort of information I want to have.
You should stay here for a few more days then. Yeah, no. You should definitely go to the old meatpacking district in Copenhagen. We kept it just as it looked when it was the meatpacking district.
You're no longer packing meat
Well,
there.
actually, we still have two of the old meatpacking companies located there. They think it's terrible now, I think, because there are a lot of people dancing and drinking and having fun. But we have a lot of restaurants, we have a lot of bars, we have a lot of music venues, galleries, all kind of things. And during the summertime, we have big markets where all the farmers from around Copenhagen would come and sell biodynamic vegetables and stuff like that. So it's a place that is very vibrant, especially in the summertime, of course. As you might notice, when it's cold in Copenhagen, people don't smile as much as they do in the summertime. But
you must remember, I'm from Scotland, so it's not at all cold here. Now, let me ask you a bit about the attitudes of people in Copenhagen. I mean, Denmark, like the UK, has been known for its Eurosceptic attitudes, that is to say, doubts about European integration. But there doesn't seem to be any question about Copenhagen's identity as a European city. It's got none of the ambiguity that people in England in particular have. Why do you think that is, Pia?
I think that we see ourselves as European. I think we see ourselves as people that are interested in meeting people from all over the world. What I think that we are not that interested in is the bureaucracy in the European Union. So I think the skepticism that we have as Danes towards the EU is probably some of the same as the British some of the British had. But for the Copenhageners and the Danes, it's we're living in Europe. We're part of Europe, and we want to invite Europe into our homes and our cities, but we don't want to be part of the bureaucracy in the EU, and that is where the skepticism comes from, I think.
And what would be the attitude generally of people in Copenhagen towards Brexit, towards the British process of withdrawal from the European Union? Is it a subject much talked about, or is it quite near the top of the agenda?
It is something that we talk about in Denmark. I think we all fear what will happen in the future. Will we keep the close connection with the British people? And there's a lot of trade, although bacon and butter and all that is. Can we still be exporting that? Can we still work? A lot of Danes work in London, for instance. What will happen with that close connection? On the other hand, I also think most of the Danes find it a bit hilarious in a kind of way to see how all these people that's been against the European Union and wanted to struggle for the Brexit, now they're leaving. They're leaving England now because they've realized what they actually voted for, and they don't want to be part of that anyway. So I think that we're looking at it with some fear and skepticism, but also...
a wry amusement, perhaps.
Also that, yes, I think so.
But in terms of the politics of this, I mean, some of the Eurosceptics, the Brexiteers, as they're called in Britain, said, well, look, once Britain goes, then other countries will be queuing up to leave the European bureaucracy. Is there any chance whatsoever that Denmark would join Britain in the exit door?
I don't think so. I just saw our Prime Minister say that that will never happen. We will never have this vote in Denmark to leave the EU. For us, it's very important to be part of that. So I don't think we will leave. I think that we will have to work in the future to make it better and more slim, probably, but I think that the Danish way of doing things is to stay within the system and try to fix it from the inside instead of just getting out and yell at everyone who's trying to do good.
So you're keeping your toys in the pram then?
Exactly, exactly.
I want to ask you about Denmark's position as a small European nation, which seems to be punching well above its weight. I mean, I visited UN City, and I was very impressed with the 108 nationalities working in all these UN agencies. Is that an example of how a small country can use its appeal and its advantages, perhaps, as a small country? Because many of these agencies would have difficulty headquartering in Washington or Moscow, for that matter, but somehow headquartering in Copenhagen is much more amenable for a whole range of reasons. Is that an example of how a small country can position itself to gain the advantages, make an asset to be small as opposed to a disadvantage?
I think it's a very good example, and I think that a lot of the big agencies, they're looking towards Copenhagen and Denmark. Also some of the bigger companies, they are looking to Denmark because we have less bureaucracy, we have a more slim culture, we have almost no corruption and all that. And then I think that a lot of people see us as someone who actually wants to do good things in the world, that we will try to make an impact, that we will try to show what could be done out in the world in a better way. Some also find that really annoying that we come with the Danish way of living, the Danish hygge, the Danish all that, the Danish films and all that, and say, well, look at us, we're doing so good. But I think that we're showing a good example, and we're trying to make sure that people understand that even a small nation can also do a lot of impact. And we have Danes all over the world that are in great positions, doing a wonderful job. One of my favorite, and you should definitely look her up if you ever get a chance to do that, is a woman called Katja Iversen. She's the head of an organization called Women Deliver. It's based in New York, but they're actually focusing on doing everything they can to make women heard all over the world, to make sure that young girls get their right education, that they get a chance to be well educated in all kinds of ways, that you don't get to meet discrimination just because you're a woman and all that. And she's having meetings with, well, all the prime ministers in the world and in the UN and all that. So and she's a Dane, and she's sitting in New York doing all that.
So that's an example of an international initiative, but has very much a Danish footprint attached to it.
Definitely, definitely. And I'm proud to know a lot of people like that all over the world. And of course, it's also very important that people actually come to Copenhagen or to Denmark. And all the people working at the UN city, they are also part of the Copenhagen way of living. So hopefully when they leave Copenhagen, they will also be Danish or Copenhagener ambassadors to tell what a wonderful city it is to live in.
So that's an example of Danish influence worldwide in terms of advancing the cause of women. How is it reflected in Denmark in terms of representation at city level and representation in the national parliament? Are women finding equality within the political process?
I think in the city council right now it's almost 50-50, and we have a majority of female leaders of the parties in the city council, and some of the bigger parties also in the parliament. The second largest party has a woman in front. We have the head of the parliament is also a woman. So I think that actually in politics the women find it more attractive to or easier maybe to be in a top position.
Well, of course, the famous series Borgen had a woman prime minister of Denmark. But tell me, are Danish politics as interesting as you would have got the impression if you were an avid follower of Borgen, as indeed I was?
Borgen is fantastic, and Borgen is a good glimpse of what the parliament is doing and what the politicians are doing in Denmark.
Pia, thank you so much for being on the Alex Salmond Show.
Thank you so much.
Coming up after the break, we take a look at some of the issues surrounding immigration and high taxation in Denmark. Welcome back to our special series on Denmark, a country ranked as one of the happiest places on the planet. But increasingly, the challenges of immigration and high taxes are causing some Danes to question whether their country can afford to be as generous as it has been in the past. Others feel that new laws to ban the burqa and cuts to welfare have caused the country to edge closer to the right. Novelist Knud Romer is a renowned Danish commentator and host on one of Denmark's leading radio stations. Alex caught up with him to hear his thoughts.
Knud Romer, author, social commentator. Many surveys say that Danish society is among the most contented on earth. Why is that, and can it last?
Well, if on a rational note, it's probably actually because of our biggest problem, because of taxes, because we have great equality. There's no that huge class differences, which doesn't call for frustration. You know, we're quite equally in income and living standards, and then we have a whole lot of trust. And trust is kind of the glue that keeps society together. We do trust each other. We are a small country. And so you can keep your babies on the street without being afraid that they're being stolen. We look each other in the eye when we make deals, and we have a whole lot of trust that people won't cheat on you. So that would be the rational answer. There's not a huge difference, social classes, not huge conflicts, and a lot of trust. We are the most ironic people on earth.
You won't be well understood in America then?
No, not at all. We always say the opposite of what we actually mean. Also because we are very tight, we don't have much space. So to get some space, you say the opposite and you get some space. So we are very ironic and we are very fatalistic. I mean, we've got huge taxes, bad food. So we are kind of, content because we can't help it anyway. It's like, yeah, it's raining. Yeah, the wind is always against you. Yeah, you don't have any money. The state took it all. Yeah. Also, we might be the most content people on earth, but we're also the most hard drinking people in Europe. So the contentness might stem from that also. We were drunk when we answered.
But Knud, even if you're happy in the sense of being equally miserable, it's still registered Denmark as a happy country.
Yeah.
Now, I want to ask you about two challenges to that state of contentedness. One, high taxation. Is high taxation sustainable in the modern world with all the forces of globalization? And secondly, the perceived threat, at least, of immigration rebalancing Danish society. Let's take these in turn. Are these going to be challenges to the state of Denmark?
Actually, I mean, we are very sarcastic about the high taxes, but as I said, it keeps from conflict because you can't get anywhere. People are quite equal in income, and we are quite happy to give up a huge part of our income for a sense of social security, which again is maybe the contentness is dependent on that we feel secure, we feel we have trust. We have a very, very low corruption. We are one of the least corrupt countries in the world, which again is trust. So, and this, the high taxes, yeah, they are a plague, but then again, we buy from that a sense of social security. And of course, when the state can't deliver that, when the state can't deliver the social security and the belief that we will be helped if in need, then we have a problem with the taxes, because then we don't get anything for our money. Rather, you can't depend on yourself because you don't have the means anymore. You've given them to the state, and the state can't secure your needs. Then you have a huge problem. And again, the social welfare state is a problem with immigration, because for every immigrant we get, they have enormous amounts of rights. Hospital, school, things that costs a lot of money. So many people are going to say, well, all these high taxes, which are taking away from me, which should secure me, my welfare state, is now from each and every immigrant that is being endangered.
The most economic analysis in most developed countries would say that immigrants tend to be younger, highly productive, and contribute more to the host society than they take.
Yeah, that's what Merkel and Germany say. They have the statistics and they say, hey, you're not making children enough and you're going to need hands, you're going to need brains, so take it from there. And in Denmark, we have a general picture that they are being a menace. They are being somebody who don't contribute, but are not integrated, don't speak Danish, they don't have any education, they don't contribute to the society, they are living off on welfare. That's such a big thing in Denmark that I mean, our second biggest party is a nationalist.
This is the Danish People's Party, which has risen to prominence on an anti-immigration ticket.
Yeah, and a nationalist. Denmark for the Danes, just like Trump. Yeah.
But of course, Trump's mother was an immigrant into America, an economic migrant from Scotland.
Yeah. But that is the problem, because you see they come with criminal statistics, they come with statistics about being out of work and such, so on and so forth, and I mean, there are 250,000 immigrants, and we are 6 million people. How can they be conceived as a threat to the Danish society? But even more so, how can they be conceived as a threat to Danish identity? Because when the day is over, what we're talking about isn't really that they are a problem for the social security and the social welfare state. No, they're a problem for our national identity. So we are only talking about what is Danish and what isn't Danish. You know, the biggest problems here is they won't shake your hand. Oh, that's a problem. We are making laws that you have to shake a hand. We are making laws that you have to eat the Danish pork. If you don't eat pork in kindergarten, it's a problem. It's a problem if you don't have a Danish Christmas.
In your estimation, would that sort of restrictive legislation against hijab or on shaking hands or is that the sign of a defensive society, which feels, or some people within it feel the need to say, oh, we've got to protect this aspect which we believe is integral to
They feel Danish values and the Danish way of living under threat by a minority. And it might be, you know, Denmark was a huge empire, and we are very small, and we are a very homogenic society. We look the same, we smell the same, we eat the same, we say the same. If you diverse, you will have a problem. If you are too funny or too crazy, you know, it's a small country. So we haven't been used to people having other values, saying no by doing like this, or you know. So we are feeling a kind of estrangement that, oh, whoa, there are people having different clothes, eating different things, and we have this feeling of threat from globalization, from immigrants, from things we can't control, and this is it seems like a child in puberty, you know, who hasn't really a secure identity and who has to kind of have a huge, you know, aggression directed outwards to have a stronger feeling of being identical with yourself and your partners.
It seems the challenge to the traditional Danish political spectrum, where everybody was a social democrat, whatever party they were in. It could be overrated because elsewhere right-wing populism has won the presidency of the United States. The government of Italy is challenging hard in Germany, but in Denmark, got to be second party, but still with a fifth of the vote. Can people get too alarmed about a fifth of the country hankering back to old values?
Yeah, but they have a lot of saying. It's kind of, they have these deals, is that a liberal party wants to, say, reduce taxes. So they said, what can we give the right-wing party for that? The right-wing party always wants the same. Stronger rules against immigration, borders, and so on and so forth. And they're selling out. They say, fine, we don't care, it's a minority, you can have that. If we can reduce taxes, or if we can get our fiscal law, fine, we get your votes and you can get whatever you want, pork or handshakes, and who cares, you know. It seems ridiculous. It seems they can't cope with differences. It seems as if it's kind of misleading public opinion. Let's give them this. Let's talk about some small, irrelevant stuff because we can't deal and cope with the real questions. It seems like smoke.
But Knud, let's get down to brass tacks. As you rightly say, Denmark's the 7th most prosperous country on earth, a high productivity that many countries would envy, high taxation certainly, but great social services, public services compared to most countries, and regarded in these surveys as one of the happiest countries on the planet. What on earth are you worrying about? Why don't you just tend to your own knitting and stop fretting about things?
Yeah, well, I think one is that we're afraid they're going to take it away from us. They're going to take it away from us. And second, I think our history might not be, you know, exactly right because, you know, humanitarian, the UN city, and so on and so forth. So if you look at our history, we are kind of opportunists and we are kind of merchants. First World War, we prospered. We sold all the foodstuffs. You just go on having war. It's great. We're getting rich.
Denmark was neutral in the First World War.
Yeah, and we got rich on the First World War. In the Second World War, we were happy about the Germans until Stalingrad. And then we were, oh God, they're losing. Who's winning? Oh, the US is winning. Great. I mean, even when we had Poland here, when they came into the European country in Copenhagen, it was the Germans paying for it. They paid the Polish people some billions and say, get in. But our prime minister was standing there saying, so, ladies and gentlemen, we have a deal. When Germany took 1 million refugees, we took 1,000. We don't even take quota refugees. It's a lie. We're lying to ourselves. And maybe we are also lying about our happiness and our welfare state, because as it is now, the welfare state is in a state of slow disintegration. We are taking the means from the poorest people, those who are really in need, and are channeling them into middle-class institutions. Schools and hospitals are fine. But people without work, without education, people who are really those in need, are getting less and less and being more and more controlled, losing their freedom. They're not being treated like whole citizens. They can't do what they want, travel as they want, choose the work they want. They're being forced. I mean, I'm sitting here waiting for the moment when we say they can't vote anymore if you don't have enough money. So maybe our self-picture, our way, the story we tell about ourselves might be a lie, and we might be waking up. And we're afraid of waking up because then we aren't Danes and everything isn't that happy and that good as we think it is. And maybe that's why we feel threatened.
So when you're looking for somewhere where the grass is greener, do you ever cast an envious eye at Scotland? Might it be a Scottish glen where the Danish might aspire to really green gas?
My first love was George MacDonald. It's fantasy, you know. And I just love Scottish culture. I love Scottish literature. And I love Scottish beer, and I love Scottish weather. It's like the Danish, just even worse. And I love Scottish girls, of course. I went to the Isle of Skye, to Portree. There was the most beautiful red-haired, freckled girl who took me to a dance in the church. And I didn't pull it off. I sat waiting there, and somebody took her out and danced with her, and they're probably happily married now. I should have taken her out dancing. I would be living in Portree, having sheep, drinking with the priest, and having the most beautiful life with rain and wind and the sea, and it would be a much nicer life.
Well, Knud, I can't do anything about your lost love from Skye.
Yeah.
However, I can help you with the toasting of it.
Yeah.
And that's to give you the quaich, the Alex salmon quaich, the loving cup in Gaelic.
Oh.
You know the drill. Whiskey in the quaich, pass round only your close friends, and in particular, Knud, only Scotch whiskey.
Yeah, of course. And if you hear me, come get me.
So are we any closer to finding that elusive Danish elixir of happiness? The one that surveys tell us make it one of the most contented places on the planet. As we've seen, not everyone agrees. So is there something rotten in the state of Denmark, or is everything really hunky-dory? Perhaps the only conclusion we can actually draw is that happiness, like beauty, lies in the eye of the beholder. So from Tasmina and myself and all at the show, it's goodbye for now.